For those that don't know me, my name is Darryl Burden. I'm an independent researcher based here in Hull, but I've kind of got two hats on today. So this is a Humber Nature Forum meeting. I've been chair of the Humber Nature Forum for the last 6 years or so. This is a online meeting that we came up with because there's a few UKRI funded research projects with a focus around the Humber, all starting at the same time. So we thought it's a really good opportunity, A, for the projects to hear from the other projects what's going on, but more importantly for the stakeholders in the Humber to hear about what's planned over the next few years and how they can engage in that research. So basically today we've got a set of 4 presentations really. First of all, I've asked Jackson to give a quick introduction to the Humber Nature Partnership and the Humber Nature Forum, just so everyone's aware of how we function. Then we've got 3 speakers. We've got Brian McDonough from the University of Hull, who will talk about the CoStar network. We've then got Irene from Natural England, who will talk about the TRACK project. And then I will be talking about a TransX project, which is a research project that I'm involved in, and we'll introduce that later on. So with no further ado, I'll hand over to Jackson Sage, and he will introduce you to the Humber Nature Partnership.
Cheers, Darryl. Thank you very much. I will just start sharing my presentation. I will ask Darryl, if people do join the meeting, that you let them in, because I might not be able to see him. That would be fantastic. And yeah, here we go. And everyone can see this at the moment, I assume, because I can't see anyone else at the moment.
Yeah, so that's fine to me, Jackson.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Cool. So yeah, my name is Jackson Sage. I'm project manager for the Humber Management Scheme at Humber Nature Partnership. Just going to give a rundown and an idea of sort of where we've come from and what we do on the Humber. I know that many of you have attended nature forums before and are aware of this. However, we do also have a lot of new faces. So yes, we will run through. This is our area of operations outlined in black, so the Humber Estuary European Marine Site. We will get involved in pretty much anything from an environmental and to some extent a socio-economic aspect from within this boundary. But it's a fuzzy line boundary, as we say. In some places we do go beyond that boundary into inland and what we term functionally linked land areas. In other cases we hug the estuary much sort of closer, rather than disappearing off into deepest, darkest Yorkshire or Lincolnshire. The Humber Estuary itself, as many as you will know, drains a catchment size around about 20% of the total land surface of England. I know this is not exactly the correct way to look at it, but I like to imagine that sort of as a rough term, 1 in every 5 raindrops that falls in England flows under the Humber Bridge at some point. That's just a very, very rough guide. And I know there will be some geologists, geographers, shaking their head at that. But as a rough guide, as I say, 20% of England's total land surface is drained by the Humber. It's also very highly designated. It is a site of special scientific interest, a special protection area, special area of conservation, and it's an internationally important wetland under the Ramsar Convention. And it really is a sort of tale of 2 halves. During the spring and summer, we move into the breeding season for species such as marsh harrier, bittern, little tern, and in the autumn winter period we have the migration season where bird numbers will swell to 150,000. In terms of industry, Humber is, as I say, although it's a tale of 2 halves in terms of the ecology, it's also a tale of sort of 2 landscapes where we have broad, almost barren-looking areas of very, very highly designated environments, but then we also have sort of monoliths of industry on our landscape as well. Home to the country's largest port complex, which handles 14% of the UK's trade, and the industry has shifted over time. So we've gone from being home to some of the largest whaling ports in the UK in the 1800s to commercial fishing, where Grimsby landed 20% of England's total catch. post World War II, rapid industrialization of petrochemicals and other sort of heavy industry, with the Humber emitting 50% more carbon than any other industrial area in the UK. And now in the 21st century, we're undergoing a change again, which is something Daryl's going to be touching on with his project, where we are shifting from shifting from sort of heavy petrochemical estuary to being at the forefront of green and renewable technologies. In terms of where we came from, so there were two organisations to begin with. Humber INCA, so Industry Nature Conservation Association, a not-for-profit set up in 2002, basically hoping to integrate nature conservation into business activities in a practical way so that both businesses and the environment could benefit. And then we also have the Humber Management Scheme, so a partnership of over 35 different organisations, which aims to deliver the sustainable management of the Humber Estuary European marine site, so engaging with government bodies, local authorities, drainage boards, navigation and harbour authorities, non-government organisations and members of the public as well. In 2011, the UK government set out in its Natural Environment White Paper the idea of local nature partnerships, basically identifying the need that we should be valuing the environment more when it comes to strategic decisions and how they sort of affect people and the local economy. And the thought was, well, if we stick Humber INCA and Humber Management Scheme together, you end up with a Humber Nature Partnership. Rather than reinventing the wheel, let's put these two things together. And that's been the case for the past 13 years. Humber Nature Partnerships has existed. So in terms of what we do, we help members with planning advice, so navigating by either existing or upcoming planning legislation linked to development in close proximity to the Humber. Legal compliance in terms of advice, in some cases surveys linked to Wildlife and Countryside Act and other legislation. Most frequently nesting birds on industrial sites, which we are doing a lot of at the moment. And then conflict resolution, so acting as sort of an honest broker between developers and statutory authorities, but with much more of a sort of lean towards the environment. And in terms of the management scheme, which I head up, my role, so I work in unity with all the different relevant authorities around the Humber. So the 5 different local authorities, we have various government bodies and organisations, all of which are usually sort of split up into a north bank and a south bank. And we're trying to get rid of that sort of geographical split and just have the people see the Humber as one whole system, you know, the understanding that what happens on the north bank impacts the south bank and vice versa. We also address pressures on the Humber Estuary SPA and SAC, and then also do a lot of work with public communications, making people aware, you know, that the Humber Estuary is not something just to glance at on your way into work. It is, you know, it's an internationally important site. It's something we should all really be proud of, and I know many of us are. And then we also have the Humber Nature Forum, which we're here for today. So this brings together members of the public and representatives from different relevant authorities and interested parties who have an interest in sort of nature on the Humber Estuary. It usually takes part around a particular theme presented by experts. And the Humber Nature Forum has existed in some form or another for nearly 20 years, and we continue to meet multiple times a year. So we will shortly have more information coming out on future meetings for this year as well. And just finally, last bit is just also regarding the conference that we have on an annual basis. So each winter we invite guests from across the Humber Estuary and beyond to hear a range of talks about, you know, the Humber, both from from an environmental and from a socio-economic aspect. And we also at the conference, we also have the Humber Nature Partnership Award, which is presented to an organisation or community group that has delivered a significant project that's benefited the Humber Estuary European Marine Site of that year, or during that year, sorry. And that's it for me. A very, very quick rundown, I'm aware, but could talk for hours about it, but I won't. So if you do have any questions, do feel free to reach out to me or just pop a question in the chat. And that's it from me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jackson. It's a really good summary of what the Humber Nature Partnership is, where it's come from. So obviously Jackson is the point of contact for the Nature Partnership. And I think it's quite important to outline that at the start of this meeting, because I think that the Nature Partnership can play quite a significant role in a lot of the research projects, as well as the industry and nature conservation work that's going on around the Humber. So in the interest of time, we'll move straight over to our first speaker, Professor Bryony McDonough from the University of Hull, who's going to introduce us to the COSTAR network for those who are not aware. Over to you, Bryony.
Yes. Can you see my slides, Daryl?
Yes, that's fine.
Are they now full screen mode? I can no longer see you, but
yeah,
great.
Perfect.
Right, so thanks for inviting me. My name's Professor Bryony McDonough. I'm Professor of Environmental Humanities at the University of Hull, and also the UK National Lead for the COSTAR network, which is championing and coordinating work across the Resilient Coastal Communities and Seas programme, and you're going to hear from 2 of those projects today too. So, a little bit about me. I'm a human geographer and environmental historian by training. I've got long-standing interests in coastal and estuarine places. And much of my work is focused on community engaged and participatory projects for water and climate action. So I'm particularly interested in coastal resilience, flood resilience, but with, as you'll see in the network, wider interests into marine and nature as well. And I think it's our experience delivering a project called Risky Cities and other related Humber focused projects which shaped our enthusiasm and willingness to lead the COSTAR network. So for those of you that haven't come across it, Risky Cities, Living with Water in an Uncertain Future Climate, was a 3-year UKRI funded project that was part of the UK Climate Resilience Programme. In the project, we examined Hull's long history of living with water and flood and used these learning histories to engage communities in building flood resilience today and for the future. We did that via large-scale public arts, so some of you may have attended Floodlights in 2021, site-specific theatre, for example, at the UN COP26 event in Glasgow, and via a programme of creative community engagement. So that involved workshops, creative writing, visual arts, textiles, music, digital media, and touring exhibitions, which made their way around Hull and the surrounding areas. Now, it was a fantastic opportunity to run that project. We worked with some really brilliant community and third sector groups, particularly in Hull, but then later in the project, increasingly elsewhere in the Humber and out on the Holderness coast. And it was this experience, kind of doing this kind of participatory, grounded work to drive climate and flood resilience, that really put us in a position to be interested in and willing to take on the COSTAR network. So, what is the Resilient Coastal Communities and Seas programme that you're going to hear about today? So it's a £15 million investment consisting of a Network Plus, which I lead, and 4 research grants. Overall, the programme as a whole aims to build a transdisciplinary whole systems understanding of UK coastal seas, coastal communities, and coastal natural capital. It aims to support collaboration with stakeholders to build understanding and enable transformative decision making, and to enhance community knowledge mobilisation and improve resilience in the management of UK coastal areas and seas. And I'm going to be clear, having Jackson put up that map, for me, coastal absolutely includes estuarine. And as you'll hear from the projects, the Humber is central to both the network and to 2 of the projects. So as I say, there are 4 large REX projects. They are transects, led by Karen Alexander at Heriot-Watt, Transitions in Energy for Coastal Communities Over Time and Space, and you'll hear a bit about that today. Arise, Advancing Resilience and Innovation for a Sustainable Environment, led by Gina Reinhardt at the University of Essex. RAC, which stands for Resilience of the Anthropine Coasts and Communities, Assessing and Responding to Urban and Post-Industrial Coastal Risks, led by Kate Spencer at Queen Mary, University of London. And TRAC, Transformative Research Actions for Resilient Coastal Communities, led by Tim Acott and Jasper Kenter. And again, you're going to hear a bit about TRAC today. So 4 big projects, large grants, and then alongside that, and what's called a Network Plus. So the Coastal Communities in Seas Together for Resilience Network Plus supports, champions and coordinates action across the whole programme. It's an inclusive and collaborative community of practice working to build knowledge, action and resilience for UK coastal communities and seas. It is inclusive, if I say, it's aimed at everyone. You are absolutely encouraged, more than welcome to join up and get involved. I've seen some names pop up here that I know are already on our mailing list. So if you've not joined already and you'd like to find out more, please do go to the website or sign up via coastar@hull.ac.uk. So who are we? We're a growing network, anyone can join. We're supported by 5 co-leads, academic co-leads from 6 UK universities. So myself as the project lead and another 15 co-leads. You can see lovely pictures from people's universities' websites up there. And we're working with what was initially 25 coastal, marine and voluntary sector founding partners who signed up at the stage we were putting the bid in, and that number's grown really quite significantly since, along with all the partners on the research projects themselves. So Humber Marine Partnership being one of those, and we're very grateful today for them offering to host this event. So, as I say, the network's aims to champion and coordinate research and knowledge exchange across and beyond the REX programme, and that's really important. So for me, it's about coordinating, champion, supporting, making the whole bigger than the parts for the research projects, but it's also absolutely about bringing new stakeholders in. Lots of the work we're doing through the network is community-led, needs-led, so we need to hear from you. We need to know what you need, so please do reach out. Second of the aims is to develop and support transdisciplinary research capacity around coastal and marine resilience, including via our flexible fund. So along with the 4 big projects, we also have funds within the network to fund a number of smaller projects. So to fill gaps that the bigger projects necessarily, they can't do everything. There will be gaps. We'll be working to address some of those, and they will be community-led, engaged, and really looking to work with external organisations and other underrepresented groups, which, for example, also includes early career researchers. And finally, we'll be working to scale and embed effective place-based interventions into policy, practice and knowledge mobilisation. I popped our objectives up there. So it's about sharing learnings and good practice. It's about co-designing and hosting events, training and mentoring to improve partnership working and to nurture the next generation of coastal resilience champions. It's about working in partnership with coastal communities and partners to identify and respond to priority needs, as I say, using our flexible fund. We'll also be working to collate key insights, case studies and resources through our website, through policy briefs, foresight documents, conferences and practitioner events. And also building ongoing practitioner and community-led evaluation and reflection on the activities delivered by the Network Plus and using those to shape future learning, legacy and funding opportunities. So as you'll see, we've got an awful lot to do. It's a 5-year project. We're really excited about it, but we've got an ambitious programme to deliver. Much of the work we're doing is organised around 3 cross-cutting themes. So those are people, places and participation. So that's about working together to develop best practice and training, particularly focusing on the use of creative and participatory methods to involve communities and stakeholders in building coastal resilience. And I hope you can see that thread really draws through on the work that we were doing at Hull prior to starting the network. The second thread is led by colleagues at the University of Liverpool, and that's around living with coastal uncertainties, exploring levels of uncertainty in coastal data and modelling in particular, including those involving coastal risk, but also considering how communities live with shifting predictions and changing environments. So the uncertainty that is necessarily built into discussions about climate futures. And finally, colleagues at the University of Glasgow will be leading work on behalf of the whole programme about working together at interfaces. So this is about developing skills for working across different disciplines, sharing strategies, toolkits and guidance in order to support and implement effective resilience action. So you'll see action is absolutely fundamental to what we're doing. This is about bridging the policy practice academic divides and ensuring that we're delivering on the ground. So what have we been doing so far? So we officially launched in November. The programme was announced last July, just after the general election. So we're sort of in months 9 or 10 now. So what have we been up to? Well, we launched the programme formally in early November at the University of Hull. Some of you were there. It was attended by 140 people from a range of sectors, and that included universities, but also really heartening to see representation from government, from agencies and from industry. The programme included a welcome from Emma Hardy MP and an overview of the REX programme and the CoStar network, as well as roundtable discussions featuring colleagues from a range of coastal and marine organisations. Then in the afternoon, we ran a series of workshops that aimed to foster knowledge and engagement in the REX and CoStar programmes, to generate data and ideas to shape future CoStar actions, and to build collective capacity for knowledge, action and resilience. So participants contributed to a collaborative coastal inquiry, a living glossary and a deep mapping exercise. Some of those outcomes have been shared already with the network, some are still to come. And we were lucky enough to have the very brilliant More Than Minutes with us, who do visual minutes and produce this really fantastic summary of all the discussion, everything that happened in the day. And you can see there's pictures of various people getting engaged. Some people are recognisable. I am very glad that nobody did a sketch of me, but it was a really nice summary of everything that happened. Next steps, what's happening now? Well, we've launched a regular newsletter. Some of you are on that mailing list. There's a new webinars series. So Wednesday, 14th of May, that launches with the first webinar in the series. Do sign up via the website. We're going to have our first round of flexible funding launching this summer. I think a focus here will be on early career researchers, supporting them, and then we'll have a call a little bit later looking at supporting community groups, third sector organisations and the like. We've got our Year 2 programme event, so that's an in-person event happening the 11th and 12th of September 2025 at the University of Glasgow. And we've also got funds to support those who don't otherwise have the opportunity to support themselves to go, so those outside academia, outside industry, or for whom your organisation won't support you to attend. So please, again, when that call gets out, please do feel free to get involved. And lots of ongoing training, workshops and events. Now, Jackson asked me to ensure that we did some Humber focus stuff. Of course, I'm running a national network, all for UK nations, so it's necessarily big in geography, but I did also want to flag a number of the local projects that we're also working on. So here at the University of Hull, we're involved in 2 of the DEFRA Environment Agency Flood and Coastal Innovation projects. So that's the Changing Coasts East Riding project led by the East Riding of Yorkshire Council, where we're helping to deliver a programme of community-based research to co-create better transitions in areas affected by rapid coastal change. That includes building CPD around coastal transition. My colleague Stuart McClelland heads up SUDS Lab, which is collecting real-time data on sustainable drainage systems. So that's primarily based on the south bank of the Humber, but working also in Hull and the East Riding with Living with Humber. Water Data for People, which is about real-time hyperlocal weather and hydrological data, and using that to communicate water and climate issues and action with communities. It draws on both science-led, data-led approaches and participatory approaches. Other related Humber research projects, so work led by my colleague Sue Hull around coastal defence ecological enhancements with the Yorkshire Marine Nature Partnership, work on microplastic deposition and transport in the Humber involving Julie Hope. Many of you will know Rodney Foster and his work around oyster fisheries, and I think that involves colleagues here. My colleague Greg Vassopoulos is working on water quality in the Humber using distributed sensor arrays. The Community Waterscapes project, led by Katerina, who I've spotted here today, explores watery heritage in Hull and its surrounding areas, and work through the Humber 2100 partnership on the Stakeholder Forum and as a partner on the Living with Water partnership. I won't talk all through these in detail, but I also pulled together the names and project topics for a number of our PhD students working on Humber PhD projects, and I know it involves some partners here, and I'm sure people will be interested to hear from colleagues if they wanted to know more. So please do get involved, sign up for the mailing list for our newsletters, events and webinars. If you work for a voluntary community and third sector organisation and are keen to get further involved, we've got a call out at the moment to join our strategic advisory board that closes on the 16th of May. In due course, please do consider applying for flexible funding to support small projects around coastal and marine resilience. We've also got opportunities to apply for funding to run training workshops. So if you've got a training need that you think others within a wider geography or within a particular group of practitioners or policymakers, if you've got a specific training need, please do get in touch. We're going to have funds to support needs-led training. You can offer a case study to feature on our digital engagement platform. We're going to have a map up and running very shortly with case studies. And you can also contribute to one of our community practitioner or policy workshops. If you want to know more about the related projects I flagged or the PhDs that we're currently working on in the Humber, please do email eei@hull.ac.uk and we will do our absolute best to send you to the right place. So that's it for me. Please do make sure you've joined the network, and I think we've got a little bit of time now to answer some questions if people have them.
That's great, Bryony. Thank you very much for that. It's a great introduction, not only to your own project, but also to the wider program, which is really useful and really sets the scene nicely for the whole of the day. So over to the people on the call. Does anybody have any questions for Bryony? It's a lot of information to take in there, but it's a huge amount of
sorry
work
about that,
ongoing.
folks.
No, that's good. That's good. Has anybody got any questions? Are you happy that we share the slides, Bryony, as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I think obviously there's a lot of detail in there, and I think people might maybe want to get in touch with about various different aspects outside of this call. So that's not a problem. So what we'll do, if there's no questions at this point, is we'll move on to our second speaker. There's time at the end of the session to ask questions or more general questions about all three projects once they've presented. So there might be other questions come up after that. So many thanks again, Bryony. It's really good presentation. And if we can hand over to Irini from Natural England, who will introduce us to the TRACK project. Over to you, Irini.
Thank you, Daryl. I will try to share my presentation. Just one sec. And I hope it will work. So can you see now? Yeah. Can you see the presentation or just the slides? Let me see.
I can see just the slides. If you put it into full screen mode, they're perfect.
Yeah. Now I'm in full screen mode and I don't see you. So if there's something, just shout. So
no problem.
Thank you very much for inviting us to present today. It's a really great opportunity to say a few things about the TRACK project. I will present on behalf of the team, and unfortunately nobody else of the team is in the audience today, but I think Catherine must be, of course, Catherine Carson and Jackson and Alex, they are also part of the project. So if you can see, we're quite a few organizations, not only universities, but also private research organizations, consultants, and Natural England, which is government organization. So we are a transdisciplinary team. I will say a few things about this academic jargons as we go along. So the core team, we're about 21 people that we lead. The research is going on and I will go on in the project, and our team is led by Tim Maycott, who is from the University of Greenwich, and Jasper Kanta from the University of Aberystwyth. All the team comes from many different disciplines. We have social scientists, economists, modelers, artists, and lots of different ecologists or marine biologists and so on. It's quite a wide mix of disciplines. So what's the track what is the approach and the aims of the project? So track aims to explore and implement transformative governance structures that will support coastal resilience. I will go and try to explain what we mean by transformative governance structures and later. So we adopt an approach that is based and values approach, and that means that we look in the complex relationship between biophysical and socio-cultural economic dimensions of that they affect resilience in a place, and we are in the transdisciplinary, and we promote co-creation. I'll go on to explain what we mean by that. So in terms of the transformative change, this is the idea that when we, is it something? Sorry, okay. So the fundamental change, when we try to achieve a fundamental change, the idea is that we need to see things differently. We need to have the potential to go away with the way we make decisions and see the world through a different view. And this is to challenge, we say, the current dominant ontologies, which that means how we think the world operates, and see if it's perhaps it's a different point. We can see things from a different point of view. Also, our epistemologies, the way that we generate knowledge, evidence to make our decision, so we can we can challenge that, we can question, can we bring different forms of knowledge in, then can we ask different people, follow different perspectives, and also how things are structured at the moment, who is making decisions and who is not making, can we challenge that and see if we can change it? That is the whole idea before the transformative change. When we say place-based and values-based approach, we start from the position that resilience is a very dynamic set of qualities and factors that they interact, and these factors and challenges, in order to explore the resilience of a place, the community, or the resilience of the community, they may come from completely different places. They may be environmental, they may be socio-economic, cultural, institutional, how it is structured. But most fundamentally, the community resilience is also influenced from perspectives, from those that they made a community. And so, something else is that it's multi-scale. I mean, Jackson mentioned that the management of the harbor, it's not just affected from what is going on in the sea or in the coast, is affected what is happening further in. In the environmental problems, this is fundamental. It's a characteristic of any pollution. Although it demonstrates itself on a location, the causes are far from the center. So we need to explore things more widely and look in the systems thinking, employ system thinking to see how things are operating and how they are influenced. But also, one fundamental thing is that when we speak about communities are not homogeneous. They're not just made up for one set of minds in many respects. So what we try to do is to look and to adopt this transdisciplinary approach, which means that we can bring all these different diverse ways of knowing from experts together, but also those that the values and knowledge of those that they are living on in the areas. And we try to co-create, bring people together and decide what's the problem, how the problem can be solved, so we can co-create a solution. And just to note on transdisciplinary, again, just for those, because I realize this is academic jargon, and people that may not be aware what we mean by that. Usually when we try to explore and to find knowledge or to find solutions, to find evidence, we do research, and the research is done by different disciplines. And this is where the disciplinary perspectives, we do that, or we follow our practices, our methodologies, which we have adopted, and we believe that they are right. And we have come up with findings. And when we are a complex issue, we may have to consider different approaches for the hydrologists, the ecologists, the air pollution people, the economists, and everybody of them, they may come with different findings. And then we put all the findings together to make a decision, which is the multidisciplinarity, because we have many disciplines that they tell us what the issue is. We have the participatory approaches, where perhaps all these disciplines, they will inform what they will come up with, their findings, by people from the ground. They will consult people on the ground. And this is another method, another type of research is when all the disciplinaries come together. We don't have 2, 3 or 4 or 5 findings, each discipline. We have one set of findings because they have worked before they produce the outputs to create something in common. Where the transdisciplinary comes is that not only we have too many experts that they come and they decide how the problem should be addressed. Like we have the non-academic knowledge coming in, people on the ground that they work, land managers, people they in the councils, in the government, or in the legislators, in the law, different people that they work, they know lots of things of how the world works around them in the industries. So this is also we include the knowledge of non-humans, and what we mean by that is that we see information we have purely from the point of view of nature. What would be good for nature, without being and filtering this for how the solutions can be achieved practically or in realistic terms. And another characteristic of this approach is that we don't overemphasize consensus. We don't look to find one approach that it would be everybody will agree. We can have a approach where we can have different opinions, and they will express on a different level. And this, what does mean is that we may have some situations that one approach may be applied, right? In other situations would be applied something else. Yeah, that is just introduction to explain myself without what the idea is behind our approach. So where we work, the project is nationwide. We have 4 case studies in 4 different countries, in Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, and Mid-North Wales. And a lot of partners which we have come together before when we make the application, when we started thinking what the project is and how we can go, what kind of methodology do we want to implement. As you can see in England, which is the Humber case study, we have the biggest, the group of partners that they supported the project, and that is indicative of our, engagement with the area. As you say, that Humber Nature Partnership is one of the partners already. So in some respect, many of you are part of the project. From this respect, Natural England is also a co-investigator of the project. We have already a lot of partners and relationship in the area, but we have also relationship with community organizations and cultural organizations from previous work I have done, and others in the project I have done in the area, Team Method and Jasper also. I'm not going on this because it would be too long to explain everything. So what TRAC is trying to do is to create, we call them resilient collectives, one in each case study. That's what we mean by that, is that we want to bring with us a small group of people with a smaller and a bigger group of people that we can work together, and this will form the resilient collective, which they will come together and they will think what resilience means for them, what it means for the area, and then they will help them with the expertise we have in the project, and that what the project can offer will help these people to create this action plans. That if we decide which is the issues, you will decide, okay, and what we can do in the next 4 years in order to address them, how we can make a progress in solving some, or approaching, or understanding the problem. Depends on what the theme of the people they will work with in each case study. It will be different because none of the case studies is the same. And from these people, the different resilience collectives, some will get a few representatives of them, that they will work all together at a national level, and they will work to create this, to come up with ideas how resilience, community resilience in the coastal areas and seas, it can be addressed in general, to synthesize the knowledge of the different case studies, and also amplify this impact by communicating wider with other institutions, with other initiatives around the country, with the Coastal Network, through the Coastal Network, for example, and through our partners and collaborators of all the institutions we have. So we have different work packages, so apologies. We have different work packages. And what do we mean by work packages? Imagine, as I said earlier, that there are different disciplines and they work in their practices. They develop methodologies. They apply so they can work. So each of these packages, imagine that they are the experts. We are, social scientists. I know how to do this thing, and we work on some themes, and we create. So this is the sequence. It doesn't, it's just for the methodology of the project. It doesn't say anything more. So in the Humber, as I said before, we are leading this work. It's myself and Catherine Carlson from National England, and Jackson and Alexander from the Humber Nature Partnerships. We try to communicate together, so to coordinate the actions of the project. And of course, to create this contact with you, with the stakeholders, with the communities, and work on that. So we are informed that we have already a lot of work. We are aware of the different parameters of the Humber, how important it is in terms of economy, of industry, of nature, how complex stakeholder landscape is already in the area, and how the different levels of challenges, the different resilience challenges of the area. So say the project started in September. It started a little bit later than other projects in the program, and it is deliberately the first few months ahead in the design. We are dedicated in NASA's project team trying to understand where we are with these ideas about transdisciplinary, how it can work, how can we communicate on the ground. And then we starting to engage with the people in the locations, and probably you will hear more about us through the summer. And in September, October, we try to organize the first workshop of the project. We use again art-based research and participatory approaches, as Brian mentioned also, because we believe they can elicit the knowledge. We can communicate better with the people on the ground. Our work package 3, I was saying before, is exploring the values and the connections with nature. We use approaches also like we synthesize ecological and social science information to understand how people work. We use the framework of value typologies. This is the IPBS. IPBS is the Intergovernmental Panel for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. It's big, think tank worldwide, international, that they have thought about these things before, and they have created a framework which we use in our research. And this also includes some research that they will be done in each location in the Humber, modeling of natural capital assessment, social cultural evaluation, and so on. There will be a lot of different things going on during the next few years. And as I said before, we try this to take the information, the knowledge on the ground in each location, and bring them nationally in this think tank that they will be made by representatives of the communities in each, and experts and stakeholders in each case study, to think about how can we find levers and liberal spots? Where are the liberal spots? We can address these resilience issues, and how it can be solved. And this will be helped by other experts, external experts. And the final work is that we have the coastal partnership networks that help us first to communicate what is going on the project. They design our web presence, website and communications between different channels, but also they offer training. So the project is funded. It has resources that you can help communities. There is a funding a budget for communities that they can do whatever they want, but also all these work packages, they have a series of workshops or a series of activities like natural capital assessment, for example, that the project has the resources to do work in the different case study. So this is, in few words, I'm finishing. So this is the idea that the track is grounded in the idea that in order to find innovative solution, and we can do it through developing ways of working across academia and other sectors, the practitioners and the civil society, and embrace different ways of knowledge. So this is the fundamental thing that we try to do. And the question, I came with a question for you today, but just in case you don't have questions for me. Which are you think that the best resilience, community resilience or resilience issues in the area that track could gauge and prioritize? Because this is we'll decide with when we start the engagement with you, with stakeholders and communities. But yeah, it's a question for you. And thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please go ahead. Thank you very much. And sorry for taking a little bit longer.
That's perfect, Irini. Many thanks for that. Questions already? Tony Edwards.
Yeah, hi there. Thanks very much, Irini. I'm Tony Edwards, a director of Humber Nature Partnership. I wondered if you could give a very quick example of where your approach has been more effective, achieved better solutions than, say, typical multidisciplinary approach, which perhaps is what has been practiced on the Humber, and also asking if you're drawing on quite a lot of previous research projects, mostly ones in my mind are European funded, like EuroCat, HumberCat, Har Basins, TIDA, probably various projects which Daryl has been involved with. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. Yes, of course, there are lots of different projects that they have used the transdisciplinary approaches. We draw in many. I wouldn't say we have a long list actually, and we have created a transdisciplinary approach with all these different projects. I cannot name them now, but I can give you a list after the project. The projects that Darren says, I'm not sure if we have included them in the list, but the idea is that we include information and things as we go along. As you know, that we haven't started yet, but in the team, we have experts that they work in international projects. So we draw in many projects that they are Europeans, but also international and national in the UK. I don't know if you, I cannot name the projects now that we are taking our perspectives, but they are tested. And the methodologies, as I say, the IP-based frameworks that we are using for the levers and for the values, it's tested, it's well known. But also the transdisciplinary approaches that we employ, they come from an analysis of many different that they are already being involved, it being tested on the ground.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Tony. Has anyone else got any questions? Again, there'll be a period of time at the end of the session, which we've allowed. So once you've heard all three presentations, hopefully you can have a kind of think about that. Any more questions?
Just to point out, Daryl, there's one in the chat that Nick put in, but I think Nick said maybe a question for the end, and I think it'll be probably wise to save it to the end when we have like a sort of a recap on all three talks.
Perfect. Yeah. If you remind me, Jackson, at the end, we'll include that question. So, okay, thank you very much.
Can I say just 1 second? I mean, I can look the question more in detail. But I think the idea is that the Humber was exactly chosen when we were trying to see where the project will be applied, and all of the other case studies of the track. They chose it especially because they are complex areas. And we want to explore all these different dynamics. But the idea is that we do not explore them. We call the people to explore them. That's why we want to, this is the difference between the previous, perhaps, approaches that they have been included. And we did want to have case studies where they would be questions that what we call in academia, they're wicked problems, that they don't have one solution, they have many, and many solutions means that many people that they disagree or agree in this, and they have the power to pull the issue in different directions. And how do we find the solution which would make the communities and the economy or all the operation of the system resilient? And this is the idea.
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you thanks a lot for your presentation, Irene. I think it was really shows the vast amount of work that you're planning to do. We appreciate, it's a slightly later starting project than some of the others. So we're really interested to see how this one plays out, and hopefully we can engage with that as we move forward. So it's just after 2 o'clock. Can I suggest we take a short break until 2:10, and then we'll come back for the final presentation. Have a think about any questions that you might want to raise for any of the three speakers. But if we come back for 2:10, we'll have the final presentation, and that should leave us sort of 20-25 minutes for any general questions at the end. Okay, see you back here at 2:10.
Thank you.
2:10. Hopefully you've all had a chance to refresh your coffees, get some fresh air. It's a nice warm day today, so it's we'll get going as soon as we can. Irene, can you stop sharing your screen, please? Or Jackson, can you do that? I'm not sure. Okay, perfect.
Apologies. I was trying to. Sorry, I didn't realize I was sharing. I thought I stopped earlier. I tried to copy it. It said the summary of the different projects we borrow knowledge for the time. But I don't think you can see it. Can you open it? But because I was trying to upload it, I just copy and paste, but I don't think it will work in the chat.
Yeah, the formatting gets a bit messed up, but hopefully we can share that afterwards, Irene. That shouldn't be a problem. We can share that after the meeting, can't we, Jackson?
I will try to upload it as a document, just a table, because it's a long document. It's a draft, so we cannot. But the table I can upload it. I will do it now.
I was going to say, Irene, the other option quickly is just to do it as a screenshot and upload it as an image rather than try to do it as a document. It might accept it easier that way. So, but yes,
it's a long table. It's a few pages table. I don't know if it will be.
Okay.
It's not the screenshot, but I will try to see. I'll see. Otherwise, I can send it in an email and you can.
Perfect. Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see my screen, Jackson?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. Okay, so final presentation is about the TransX project. This was the brainchild of Karen Alexander from Harriet Watt, who unfortunately can't join us today. So I'm going to try and provide a quick overview of the project. I only have a small role in it, but again, hopefully I can give you a bit of a flavour of what the project's trying to do. Again, some of the themes that have come up already through Bryony's presentation and through Irina's presentation follow through into this project. We're very much looking at a transdisciplinary approach, but we've got quite a specific aim or a specific scope of the project, and we're looking particularly at marine energy transitions and how those have impacted coastal communities both over time and space. Again, we've got a very diverse team, many disciplines represented, from marine ecologists to social scientists to archaeologists. We've got lawyers, we've got engineers, we've got human geographers, we've got a whole range of audience, and that's very much reflects the fact that we're trying to look at both natural sciences, we're trying to look at social sciences, and we're also bringing in the arts and humanities aspect as well. So we've got all of that sort of experience represented across 6 different organisations. For the purpose of the project, one of my roles is the kind of Humber coordinator, if you like, to make sure that all of the stakeholder engagement activities are coordinated in the best way to make the best use of stakeholder time. So again, I'll be the kind of local contact, if you like, but largely the project is very much driven by a number of postdocs and research associates. So Dan Lee up in UKRI in Orkney. Also, the three photos at the bottom of Amy, who's on the call today, Sophie and Jack, who've all been employed for the next 3 years to work on the project. They all only started last month, sorry. So they've been in post for a month, but a lot of the work will be. Oh, Jack's here as well. Sorry, Jack's joined us. So 3 people who are going to do a lot of the work in the project. Few faces: David Atkinson from the University of Hull and Jim Gilbert. That I know David's on the call, and Jim Gilbert, both at the University of Hull. So some local familiar faces. Again, like the other projects, we've had a whole range of stakeholder partners that have supported the bid, whether that be from national government, whether it be from local councils, local authorities. A lot of the work we're doing is looking at some of the arts practices, how we can engage people in the best way. So there's a lot of national museums have come on board, the Pier Arts Centre in Orkney, as well as locally the Hull Museums and Galleries and Hull History Centre and so forth. So what we're trying to do, in essence, the aim of the TransX project is to collate new bodies of information relating to marine energy transitions, and I'll go over how we plan to do that. We want to try and develop novel transdisciplinary research methods related to energy transitions, both to look at what's happened in the past and how we can learn from what's happened in the past into the future. And we also want to contribute to policy and practice in marine energy transitions. Our project started on the 1st of April last year, so we've just kind of 1 year into the project, and it'll run until the end of March in 2028. So we've still got 3 years of the project left to go. Our focus is on, as I say, 3 different types of, or 3 different marine energy transitions, looking historically, going back to whaling in the 18th and 19th century, and the fact that whales, one of the benefits we were getting from the whaling industry was whale oil as an energy source. Moving through to oil and gas, obviously a big issue in the North Sea, and then that kind of focus onto offshore renewables, which is very much the focus of a lot of energy transition work nowadays. So what we're going to try and do is shifting from the kind of the oil and gas, the non-renewable sources, to the kind of offshore renewables, and we want to try and learn from the past. So whaling we can hopefully going to try and use whaling as an example where we can look for an energy transition through to oil and gas, through to offshore renewables. So to say, in the 18th and 19th century, whale oil was a key fuel in the Industrial Revolution. In the early days, very much relied on things like sailing ships, rowing boats, hand-thrown harpoons, catching right whales in the Arctic, which were relatively easy to catch and provided large amounts of sort of whale oil, which is valuable for the energy. Later, as things developed, obviously the introduction of coal-fired steamships, harpoon cannons allowed more species to be caught. That changed over time, and whaling in general for the use of whale oil ended in the 1800s, obviously with the development of electric lighting systems. So oil and gas, obviously this is a relatively more recent approach, 1960s onwards. Oil steadily has been replacing coal, particularly for transportation in the early 1960s onwards. And one thing we need to be careful of within our project is, although we're focusing only on marine energy transitions, we've got to take into account what's happening terrestrial as well. So obviously the coal industry, how coal's changed things over time, needs to be taken into account. So just some facts there. So obviously, 1964, gas was first discovered in the southern North Sea. 5 years later, oil being discovered in the central North Sea as well. By 1984, the UK is the 5th largest oil producer, but now obviously it's very much an industry in decline. There's a huge number of rigs and offshore oil and gas infrastructure that needs decommissioning over the next decade or so. So again, a big challenge that we face, both from an environmental, but from a social and economic perspective. Moving on to renewables, we're now in the kind of renewable energy era. Obviously, the first offshore wind farm located off Denmark was in the early 1990s, with sort of 10 years later, the first UK commercial wind farm off the North Wales coast in early 2003. We're also moving into transitioning towards floating wind as well, which the first floating wind farm went in 2017 off the north coast of Scotland. And we've now got around 43 offshore wind farms around the UK. With the current government plan to obviously quadruple offshore wind energy by 2030, there's a huge shift towards the kind of renewable energy sector. The reason I included that image was taken last week from the north bank of the Humber. That was the Wind Peak vessel, which is one of these new vessels that's loading up at the Siemens wind turbine factory. This vessel can take 6 monopiles and 18 wind turbine blades. It can house 130 people at a time. And what it does is it comes into shore, it jacks itself up, fills up with these 6 wind turbines, sails out to the Dogger Bank. Once those are installed, it can sail back. It is making a hugely more efficient way, rather than transporting turbines in many different loads, if you like. So it kind of showing the technology. This is right in the centre of Hull city centre. The scale is very difficult to show from there, but it's huge. And this is kind of the way things are going. So we're focusing on 3 key case study locations. The exact location of these boxes will vary. We're looking at Orkney, we're looking at the northeast and east coast of Scotland, and we're looking at the Humber, obviously, which is the interest for a lot of people on the call today. We don't have necessarily definitive boundary. We're not just looking at the Humber Estuary itself, depending on the issues we're looking at, whether it be whaling, whether it be offshore oil and gas, whether it be offshore renewables, those kind of geographic locations are quite flexible. So we're not tying ourselves down to those specific boxes, but they're just for just to show you in a way that we're interested not only in the different geographical locations, the difference between, say, an island community in Orkney, or the coastal communities around, say, Aberdeenshire, down to the Humber, but also over time. So we're looking at it from the early 18th, 19th century with respect to whaling, coming all the way through to present day. And the idea of the overall project is really to start to look at what we can learn from previous transitions, how communities change because of those transitions, and how, looking to the future, how can we make those transitions more just for society. Our research is split into four themes, if you like. We're looking at natural capital stocks, flows and values, taking very much a natural capital approach to what we're trying to achieve. We've got a stream looking at repeopling the past, and I'll go into what we mean by that. A theme on a just transition, and a theme on theory of change. And again, the website's there. The website's now up and running, which provides a bit more information about these different themes. But I'll try and quickly introduce you to what we're trying to achieve over the next few slides. This, I guess, is my main input into the project, assessing natural capital approaches. Natural capital approach is very much recognising that we have stocks of natural capital in the marine environment. These stocks can provide flows of ecosystem services, which again, we can value in ecological terms. However, once those go into the human domain, humans can gain benefit from some of those services, and those can be valued both in economic terms or socio-cultural terms. And we've got two postdocs, Jack focusing largely on the natural environment side of things, and Sophie focusing on the economic and socio-cultural value aspects. And what we want to try and do is identify data sources of the stocks of natural capital, the flows and the benefits all linked to those marine energy transitions. We want to know how they're interlinked and how they've affected coastal communities over time. So, for example, we want to start to identify particular indicators of those different components. So looking at, say, whale oil as an example, the natural capital stocks, obviously the whale populations, the number of whales, where they were landed, where they were caught. Historically, looking back at different types of data for where they were landed, what benefits does society get from those whales that were caught as part of that industry, both from a positive and negative perspective. So obviously there's the energy, but there's a lot of other benefits gained from the whaling industry back in later times. But also, what are the disbenefits? Obviously things like health impacts, pollution, shipwrecks, loss of life, and also this kind of idea of a boom and bust economy with respect to that. So these are the kind of ideas that we're going to start capturing, particularly Jack and Sophie's work. We're going to start identifying data sets for each of the 3 different case study areas. We're going to try and map the existing data we have over both space and time, and look at how those transitions have changed, when they changed, and how those changes impacted the coastal communities in the area. Obviously, when you talk about whales, it's relatively straightforward from a natural capital context, whereas when you start talking about oil and gas or renewable energy, then it becomes a bit more of a complex challenge that we face, and that's something that obviously Jack and Sophie will be trying to tackle over the coming months. The second theme is very much about repeopling the past. Again, similar to what Irini presented, recognizing the importance of engaging people both not just in the kind of environmental data, but also looking at oral histories, looking at the energy heritage, looking at personal stories, how we can get that kind of local knowledge, local stories, how we can understand what went on in the past, and draw that into the analysis that we plan to undertake. So we're planning place-based participatory creative practice, archaeological workshops, and community exhibitions, again in all 3 case study areas. Understanding the history of our present to visualize different features through heritage, art, and creative practice. And the activities program generally occurs around a kind of storyline events, followed by walking workshops in each of the different energy regimes and each of the different locations. And just to kind of flag for the Humber, this work's kind of starting to launch later this year, with events planned for spring/summer 2026. A good example of how we can kind of take some of the sort of energy transitions and show how they've linked to local society. This is a picture taken as part of the Hull City of Culture back in 2017. One of the Siemens blades, the artwork called Blade. The Siemens blade was erected in the centre of Hull City Centre. That's the City Hall behind it, the Maritime Museum just off to the right of that. And the artist Nayan El-Kulkani basically said, as soon as you take it out of the factory context, it becomes something arabesque and sculptural, almost like a whalebone or a fish, so giving a nod to the kind of maritime history of Hull. But this instalment was there for a couple of months, I believe, and it really engaged the public in actually talking about the sort of marine renewables, talking about the history, the heritage of the Humber. And it was a magnificent sight to see. One of our other sort of streams of work is related to the just transition, and this is led by Daria and Tavis up at the University of Hull, and with a postdoc Amy, who's I think still on the call. And this work is very much looking at what is a just transition, Obviously, just transitions are equitable, inclusive, and do not burden vulnerable communities. And these gain a lot of benefits, not only for jobs, but also with respect to skills transfer, revitalizing communities, community benefits and well-being, and obviously take into account things like energy and environmental justice, participation and energy democracy, and equity and sustainability transitions. So the work we're planning to do with respect to the just transition is largely based off some work which was led by Dario and Tavis up in Aberdeen, measuring just transition, looking at the different indicators and scenarios for just transition. And that original case study focused just on Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire, but the methodology they developed, the indicators that they identified within their report will be drawn upon in the TransX project within each of the different case study areas, looking at how we can measure that just transition. Amy's just started or is making good progress with a rapid evidence review in each of those different locations, and then that'll lead on over the next few months, and will include things like stakeholder interviews as part of a PESTEL analysis. So again, many opportunities to engage in the project, both as either as a partner or as just an interested member of the Humber community. The final research theme, I guess, is this idea of co-creating a theory of change. We want to kind of take it past a theory of change and actually make some actual change. So we're towards the end of the project, where we've taken all of the kind of environmental evidence, all the stories, the histories, the public input into the project. Then we want to try and look at how we can create a theory of change or an actual change. Working with local communities to articulate a vision for their own equitable and just marine energy transition, obviously based on the evidence produced by the work packages, undertake stakeholder engagement in each of those different case study areas, and trying to promote dialogue and share the information throughout the project. So the outputs, again, we will be targeting obviously academic research. As an academic research project, we'll be trying to publish obviously peer-reviewed papers, but also advisory briefs for industry and government. So trying to identify planning changes to enhance community resilience in marine energy transitions. We'll develop a marine energy transitions atlas, which will present the evidence and human stories for marine energy transitions in our case study sites. We're going to develop a transitions blueprint toolkit, which will outline how to enhance community resilience and equitable decision making. And again, we'll create lots of mini exhibitions of co-produced creative work on marine energy transitions, which will be co-produced and taught obviously the local communities in those 3 case study sites. So just to quickly summarize at the end, where engagement within the Humber, we feel we'll definitely need some, but also if people are interested in particular aspects of the project, then please feel free to get in touch with us. For the natural capital approach, obviously, we want to try and identify the data and map that data over both space and time, and therefore we may call upon stakeholders in the Humber to check we're using the most appropriate data, whether there's any other data sources out there, but also to provide feedback on some of the outputs from the project. I should say we've started to identify some of the key stakeholders in the project, both myself working with Karen and Dan of the project, but also with Jackson at the Humber Nature Partnership to try and identify those stakeholders around the Humber that may be interested in contributing to this work. So again, if you're interested, please get in touch and we can add your name to the list and we can try and engage people as much as we can throughout the project. Obviously, with respect to repeopling the past, collaboration with visual arts practitioners, contemporary archaeology workshops, there's plenty of opportunity there to get engaged in the project. Again, the just transition, again, the kind of support for ensuring we're including the right data in that rapid evidence review, but also taking part in some of the stakeholder interviews, which will be taking part over the next year or so. And again, finally, this theory of change, this end product, if you like, trying to look at stakeholder workshops in each of these regions to try and take all the information that the project has provided, both on the natural capital, the repeopling, the past, and the just transition, trying to take all of that and trying to kind of co-create theories of change, and that'll be done through stakeholder workshops towards the end of the project. So just to give you a rough idea, as I say, we're approximately a year into the project now, shown in red there. We've already started with respect to natural capital, trying to identify those data sets, start looking at the quantitative analysis and qualitative analysis that we could undertake. But again, that's the work that Jack and Sophie are going to progress going forward over the next 12, 18 months. Again, we'll synthesize all that work as part of that workshop. But again, there's areas where stakeholders can feed into that process. With respect to the just transition, as I say, the rapid evidence review is underway at the minute, and hopefully that will be completed later on this year. And then following that, a series of stakeholder interviews will be held at each of the case study sites. Again, as the repeopling the past themes of research, the archaeological workshops and the visual arts collaborations, those are starting to get planned for later this year, starting in the Humber. And again, those events will be taking place around this time next year. So again, if you're interested in taking part in any of that, please do get in touch with the project team. And again, the theory of change workshop towards the end of that project. So although we're a year into the project, we now have a full team. We have a full team to kind of deliver what we need to for the project. We've made a lot of progress trying to establish the frameworks, identify the methodologies that we're going to apply to start some of this work. But it's really from now on that the project's really going to take off, particularly driven by the postdocs we now have in post. So hopefully that's a bit of an overview of the TransX project. Again, looking at transitions in energy, so very focused on marine energy transitions, which makes it more specific than, say, the TRAC project. But again, there are certain areas where we can hopefully work together. We have a website up and running now, so please feel free to check out further details on there. And we'll hopefully have some social media handles as well very shortly, which we can share with the group. So that's everything for me. Does anybody have any questions? Specifically on TransX or for the overall project? Yes, Darren.
Thanks, Daryl. Yeah, sounds interesting project. One particular one that sort of sprung out to me was the sort of just transition kind of work stream. And be interested to know whether or how much work is being done, particularly looking at the impacts on local communities of likes of cable routes and pipelines and so on that are happening on down the Lincolnshire coast. There's at least sort of, just made a quick sort of mental calculation here, there's at least sort of 6 different schemes where either cables coming from offshore wind turbines are making landfall either on the Humber or Lincolnshire coast, and then running down sort of through Lincolnshire and to various different substations. Or sort of conversely, carbon capture pipelines going from the terrestrial environment through the coastal and through the sort of Lincolnshire or Humber coast and out to sort of former oil and gas fields in the North Sea, affecting a relatively similar sort of stretch of the Lincolnshire coast. And I think that the sort of the impact on the communities in that area over the next kind of 10 years, if all of these projects get consent, will be significant. So I think that's probably an interesting one for more a comment than a question really, but sort of maybe an interesting one for the team to look into.
Yeah, I've noted that down, Darren. Yeah, I think that's where we're quite cautious of putting a fixed boundary around some of these issues. Some of the issues are very kind of localized. Some of the issues are much broader scale, and not only just the fact that one thing we're very interested in is how coastal communities connect with things like offshore oil and gas or offshore wind. The coastal communities aren't going to see the Dogger Bank wind farm, but we see the pipelines coming in, we see the cable routes coming in, we see the substations there. So it very much is looking at that kind of wider picture and trying to capture that within the project, which is why we're very cautious not to have very fixed boundaries. But again, I've noted that, and I'll pass that on to the team, or Amy's on the call as well, so I'm sure she'll take note of that and see how we can address that with respect to the just transition sort of theme of the work.
Yeah, thanks, Darryl. Yeah, I'd be happy to have a chat with anybody. I mean, Jackson's got my contact details. It'd be useful to sort of point out a few particular schemes. It's ones that I'm working on a relatively sort of frequent basis at the moment. So yeah, very happy to have a chat about that one.
Excellent.
If it helps.
Excellent. Cheers for that, Darren. Tony?
Yes, perhaps following on from Darren, I'm interested in how we've had 3 good presentations on interesting research. How actually are you going to ensure that these are taken up and implemented so we've got real change to the environment and communities, even on a day-to-day basis? I suggested earlier on, I've been involved in a number of these projects, and some time ago I was an operational manager, and I've got rather too many reports on the shelves right behind me, and I'm not sure what difference those have made. You've got a number of organizations involved, but how are you going to get through to the people who operate the systems, industry or regulations, and to the people who are really decision makers, bearing in mind the various opportunities and barriers of legislation, finance, institutional culture, and the like?
Yeah, very good question, Tony. Before I answer, does Bryony or Irene want to answer from your project's perspectives? No.
Yes, I think that's a very good question. Actually, we are hoping, from as track is concerned, that we are hoping we'll have, because it's 4 years project, we're hoping to have the opportunity to test some of this, you know, to create to push the people to make a change. But I cannot say if he will be implemented. I do appreciate the point you make that a lot of research, little of it is applied, but at least in track we have the intention to apply, the intention to help people to take action. But I cannot say at the moment how it is. And I think that will be in some respects determined of the participation we will have from people on the ground for the track, at least, because that's the idea of track, to people to participate and us as experts to help them.
What I'm suggesting is when you implement, you probably want a different range of people than those who are actually practically engaged with the project. Hopefully those engaged with the project will involve senior management. Often doesn't happen. I'm speaking from someone who overseed an R&D program some years ago, and we found with a lot of them, which were led, dare I say, by people from universities and research institutes, they're very keen to do the research, write the technical paper, get the brownie points, but when you then sort of ask them, well, can we have series of workshops? Can you have one-to-ones and things like that? Oh, we've spent all the money. No time now. We're bidding for our next project.
Can I come in? Yeah, can I come in there? So I think the thing that is really encouraging about some of the ways that big programs are being run currently by government and UKRI is that they do have these coordinating elements within them. So the very fact that there's been a Network Plus been put in alongside the 4 funded projects and the smaller projects that will fund with a flexible fund is because there is a movement to recognise that all of that additional resource is needed to scale and embed learnings. So I absolutely hear what you're saying, Tony, about, you know, sometimes money runs out in projects. You know, publications tend to come later on because research always takes longer than you think. Engagement always takes longer than you think. You run towards the end of the project. But the reason that we have a Network Plus that started, you know, at the beginning of the projects and will run on for some months at least after the projects is because we have capacity in with that to scale and embed. So the projects are at the beginning of their research. I can do more directly supporting the project, or my team can do more support directly supporting the projects once they have research learnings to share. But absolutely, the idea is that what's learned in track is shared with Transex and vice versa, where there are commonalities, and you've heard lots of those today. You know, we'll be bringing working groups together, and that we have money, resource, staffing to try and ensure that those key learnings get joined together to make the bigger, the whole bigger than the individual projects, and to try and get them in front of the right people, which is why the whole stakeholder engagement piece is, as you absolutely rightly point out, quite so crucial within this. So I hope that offers you some reassurance, but as Irini says, I think the proof's in the pudding, and you can come back to us in 5 years' time. And I hope you involve lots before 5 years' time, if you can steer us in the right direction as well. Right, so hopefully that's helpful to you, Daryl.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tony, from the TransX project, I mean, I know some of the projects Tony's talking about. I've been working on projects around Humber for the last 25 years now, and yeah, projects are done very differently nowadays. Stakeholder engagement at the key, the fact we have project partners at the proposal stage, not just at the kind of invite them later on, but they've helped steer the program, they've helped steer the proposals. We know how to engage. We have a lot of money invested in the engagement aspects, and for all three of those communities. So it really is something that we take very seriously nowadays. And yeah, hopefully, as Bryony says, in 4 or 5 years' time, we're going to have glowing reports and glowing engagement from all these projects.
Right. I'll perhaps talk to you further about that, Daryl.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Any other questions or comments about any of the presentations today?
I had a question for you, Daryl, if it's nobody else has to ask anything.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, on you go.
I just because two things actually. The first is because TRAC also plans to do some kind of natural capital assessment, but it will be very high level because of the many different things we do. And we wanted to do it to inform our community, the citizens panel discussions, and to help the discussions to see how people understand the value of the natural capital and where the liberals points. But I was wondering, are you going to do, what kind of natural capital? Because it's, assessment are you going to do? And if we, should we coordinate actions on that? Well, it's not happen, ours is not happen now, it will be next year, But one is this. And the second thing is, I was interested to see what is your idea about the theory of change you create in the end of the project, because usually you create a theory of change at the beginning and you say, okay, I will go, these are my questions, this is this, so this is what the project should do. How do you think about, I didn't quite understand your logic creating at the end as an output.
Yeah, so to answer the bit, I actually know something about the natural capital side of things. We're very much just taking that natural capital approach. We have 2 specific postdocs that are going to look at both the ecological value associated with that kind of natural environment side of things, but also the economic and socio-cultural value associated with the benefit side of things. So again, whatever we do, the data we use, the data we map, obviously we can share that between projects. That shouldn't be a problem, and it means that it doesn't have to be done twice. We're not necessarily going down the formal natural capital accounting type approach, which we're doing in other projects, but I think this is very much a case of trying to gather that data to try and map it over both space and time, and to look at how when things have changed and how those changes have impacted coastal communities. So engagement's very much at the core of that. With respect to theory of change, we have a theory of change. We've got the idea of kind of how we're trying to make that change. But I think what I was trying to get across is the fact that in order to action that change, rather than having it as a theory of change, in order to action that change, that's why it comes towards the back end of the project, where we're trying to take on board, it's going to develop throughout the project, but what we want to do is take all the evidence we possibly have and see how we can turn that into kind of positive actions at the local scale. Unfortunately, no one from the theory of change side of things is on the call today. But yeah, again, it's something that we can touch base with outside of this meeting and discuss that further.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess, Jackson, going back to the comment in the first comment in the chat from Nick, it's a really good question. I don't know whether anybody else wants to start on that one, or I can start on that. But I think that's kind of, in essence, is the reason we started this meeting. We spoke about it a while ago. Obviously, through the Nature Forum, I've supported the track project, but also working on the TransX project. And we started to realise that and then once CoStar Network started as well, that there's 3 projects which are very different, but are working in the same sort of space. And that's why we're very keen to be upfront, to try and engage stakeholders at an early stage to say, this is what all the projects are trying to do. Where we can simplify things, it's great. We can really try and work together on that. Where we're trying to do different things, then obviously we've got to plan that in. And that's where I guess I know fine well, obviously from Karen Alexander's perspective, that they attend regular meetings of all the PIs to make sure that they're all aware of what's going on in these 2 projects, but also in the other projects that are going on under this call. They're not focused on the Humber, but they're making sure that we're really trying to learn from mistakes which have happened in the past about stakeholder engagement and when people are engaged, to make sure that when people are engaged, it's actually efficient, it's worthwhile, both for the project, but also for the individuals who engage in the project.
Yeah,
Brian, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. I was just going to say I'd absolutely second what Daryl's saying. He and I have had a number of conversations at events. Jackson and I had a chat just before Christmas, I think, standing and looking at the North Sea in Bridlington, about the importance of getting this right for local stakeholders. So, as I've said previously, that's the point in having the supporting structure around the projects. And as Daryl says, the PIs are meeting regularly. We've also held a number of training events and workshops for all of the co-leads. There's 97 co-leads across the programme from memory, plus the project managers and postdoctoral scholars, and several of the projects are also appointing PhD students to work alongside it. So it's a really big group of people, which is massively encouraging because there's a huge amount of expertise there. But of course, when projects are addressing similar themes, there's also opportunities for duplication. That exists within our programme. It also exists within a range of aligned programmes. So that's local partnerships and networks, but also big government programmes. You know, the 2 Flood and Coastal Innovation Programme projects that colleagues are involved in that I flagged in my piece. It's all about avoiding duplication, breaking down silos and sharing learning. And so far, my experience has been people being fantastically generous and sending over spreadsheets going, look, this is what I've got already, or would you like to know about that? I have spent an awful lot of time in meetings having chats with people saying, well, the people you ought to know who are doing something similar in Liverpool or in Orkney are these people. And I think the openness with which colleagues are addressing this is really encouraging within this space.
Yeah, I also think, Brian, it's taking it a bit further than that as well, because it's also an opportunity for people in the Humber to learn from what's going on in these other sites. So if you want to get engaged in what's going on other sites, that's fine. But it really is a case that what we learn at all these different sites, ideally, we started off with a very ambitious project wanting to do case study sites in every UK country. You realise actually to do it properly, to do it well, we needed to kind of reduce how we did that. To ensure that we could deliver the project in every location. So although we're only focusing on 2 locations in the TransX project, we're hoping that the lessons learned can be fed back up at a national scale. We've got national government agencies as partners. We've got contacts throughout all levels of government. So hopefully we can make sure that we don't fall into traps that other projects have done.
Yeah, for the track, the work we are doing exactly for this, I mean, we communicate, as Brownie said, we communicate, and and Daryl, we don't want to duplicate things, and we very well know we are experts in working with people and participatory projects for years and years. We are very aware about the problem, the stakeholder fatigue and what is over for duplications. What we're doing at the moment is we try to map where interest and communities, organizations and cultural organizations or our stakeholders operate in the Humber to find hot spots and before we make the decision, because Humber area is very big. We understand that it may be difficult to engage with everybody, so we'll try to make decisions where we are going to operate. And of course, we work with Jackson and other people in the stakeholders already know. We have quite a long list of people that we have already worked. Yeah, I hope we will try to avoid this exactly the problems.
Nick, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks firstly for the presentations. They're really interesting and the encouraging responses around engagement. I suppose what always strikes me with this in the Humber is it's a big place, isn't it? And there's obviously your projects, but all the overlapping projects, there's Humber 2100, Natural England's protected site strategies. And I think whilst it's really good to get engagement and you can set out with the best intentions, sometimes with the best will in the world, it's really hard to grasp what all these different things are happening. And I do think there is, I've just done some engagement from relation to the sustainability appraisal. And if you hit people at the wrong time and they're busy, it's really hard to get the responses back. So I think there still is a challenge in terms of A, knowing what's out there, and B, once you know what's out there, how do you zone in on those really key points? And a lot of what we're trying to do is very similar in terms of, deliver a healthy functioning environment, in balance with, I suppose, the wider sustainability agenda to society and the economy. But it's just a challenge because sometimes the way the projects are sequenced is happening differently as well. And we talked about natural capital assessments. We've got 2 here. We've just done one as well. Is there any information we could have worked together on that? I don't know the answer to that, but I suppose at least a recognition that there is that challenge sometimes is probably one way of helping solve it. But I don't have any answers, unfortunately. If I did, I'd write them on a postcard. But yeah, thought it was worth raising anyway.
Yeah, I think it's to be honest with you, Nick, I think it's one of the real strengths of nature partnerships. I'm not just blowing the trumpet of the Humber Nature Partnerships, that's obviously the local one, but we work with nature partnerships up and down the country. And one of the main reasons we do that is because it does open a lot of doors. It engages you with a lot of the local organisations who are busy. But hopefully from the connections we've got, especially in the Humber area, we're aware of some of the other projects that are ongoing, but there's also the platforms available at the Nature Forum, for example, at other HERAG meetings about trying to advertise your own projects, make sure that everybody does know about it. And I'd prefer to be told 10 times about a project than actually never hearing about it. So there's that opportunity there which is open for people to use. And also things like the CoStar network, making sure we can use the mailing lists and all of the contacts that we can actually get these messages out so that we don't duplicate work. And I think we are getting much better at it, I must admit, but there's still a long way to go. Jackson?
Yeah, thanks for that. And I was just also thinking, just regarding what Nick said, is that exactly right. 2100 plus, the protected site strategy, the economic strategy, all kinds of different bits and pieces that we've got coming through. And although it's my job to know about them all, sometimes it's difficult for me to keep track and go, hang on, what's that one again? We do lose it. And from the opposite side of things, obviously, although it's difficult for some of us to keep track of all of it, it's even more difficult for those who members of the public who you're trying to get their engagement and trying to get them in to donate their free time to get involved. Absolutely. And it's something I'm just thinking, and I'm thinking out loud here, that it's something we can absolutely do on our website. And I'm saying this, well, it's been my decision, but knowing that my boss and the people who look after the website and board members are on the call, perhaps have a section on the website which gives a brief on all of the different projects we've got going on, all of the different research aims, and the links to their website on the page, just so that we can sort of really try and create this whole sort of picture of what's going on and where. Be quite useful. So yeah, I'm saying it out loud just so someone can hold me to it, because I'll forget, I'm sure.
I'm already holding you to it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Cool.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll await the email.
That'd be a really useful thing to do as well, Jackson. So obviously, once all the project websites are up and running, just have a link, even just a link there, just to try and link some of these things together. I think is really important. And again, that role of the Nature Partnership, pulling these people together, is vital in this experience. So, Tony,
just
Yeah, just one
sorry.
frivolous comment for you, Daryl, for your change model. In my experience, what has really engendered environmental change has been a drought, serious drought. Dare I say it, I remember the 1976 one where I suddenly switched for doing planning on river quality to working on water demand. A drought, a flood, or a coming together of a couple of ships off the Spurn. So build that into your model.
Thanks, Tony. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left. Any final comments, questions? Hopefully Jackson will be able to send around the link to the actual recording. If the other speakers are happy to do so, then we can share the slides as well. And again, if we can share the contact details for the various projects, then hopefully if people are interested, please do get in touch. I'd prefer people to let us know now that they're interested and then pull out later rather than telling us in 5 years' time. I'd be really interesting to be part of that project. So please do get in touch. We are more than willing to engage with everybody. There's various different parts of the project. So what we're trying to do in Transex particularly is have one point of contact so that we're not having multiple work streams contacting similar organizations and so forth. So I'm sure TRAC has a similar sort of setup. And if we can work together, hopefully it's for the better of the Humber. And as I say, I've been working here for 25 years now, and it's taken many, many years to get one research project based on the Humber. So to get 2 or 3 at once is an achievement. So it makes it more challenging, but I think all the hard work slowly paying off, and hopefully it'll raise the profile of the Humber. And remember as well that obviously all of the outputs from this work will hopefully benefit people living, working, and socializing around the Humber, I guess.
Can I say something also?
Yes.
To add, Daryl, thank you very much for this. Yeah, and also from the TRAC perspective, we don't want to have we don't have a project that it's ours. We have a project that is for the people. We want the people to take ownership of the project. And Tony mentioned earlier how we implement. As Brownie said, there is funding available for the only, of course, for the duration of the project, but there is support for people. They want to engage to do things, but we need to, we need, as Daryl said, people to come forward and participate in the project. Otherwise,
you should be planning that now and drip feeding throughout the project.
Yeah,
get the real
we do. That's the intention. That's the intention. In terms of planning, TRAC is starting to do engagement now during the summer, and in September, October, we want to organize a big event where people they can decide. They can tell us what they want, and they can decide. But before that, to arrive there, we need to have a pre-engagement with specific people like yourself, or some. People that they can open the gate.
With the boss of Drax?
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah. Thank you.
In the interest of time, it's 3 o'clock, and I appreciate we've taken up 2 hours of your time. Hopefully it's been a useful 2 hours. Hopefully the sun stays out a bit longer so you don't miss the entire nice weather of the summer. But yeah, just for me, a big thank you. Thank you for Jackson for arranging this meeting. It takes a lot of work to arrange these things. It's quite often not really noticed. So thank you very much to Jackson. Thank you to the speakers, Bryony and Irini. Great talks. It'd be great to share those. And thank you all for turning up. I think this is the start of a conversation. We've still got a few years to go. But yeah, regular communication is what we're going to try and do. And whether it's through the CoStar network, whether it's through the Nature Partnership, we'll make sure that the Humber kind of works together for all these projects, hopefully. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Lovely to meet you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Thank you. Bye bye.